Okay, folks, here we go.
Here we go. Let's have a good show. 1B, stand by.
Yeah.
Yacht, stand.
Yeah,
Take it.
take it. And midfield, just go
Take
right
it.
now.
Take
Go to
it.
camera 3.
Can
3,
you
go
put-
to the game.
Thank
Perfect,
you.
just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first.
Okay.
Take
Take
it.
it.
Right now,
Go
go right now. Go to camera 3. Go, yep,
Can you
go to the game. Perfect, just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q. Sophie.
Wait for it, wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
SBPM.
Go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Wait for it.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by. Couple minutes.
9, 8, 7, 6,
5,
4,
3, 2,
1,
and
and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
It takes me back to my Panama days.
All right, here we go. Back to our Panama days indeed. It is 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's 5 p.m. Pacific time, and it's now 7 p.m. Canal Zone time. But Ricky, happy Friday, man.
7 p.m. Council. Oh, that's right, because we shot forward. Hey, happy
Yes.
Friday, everybody. Willie, how's the weather out there on the East Coast? West Coast?
Nice. It's a little
Killing
rainy.
it. I mean,
It's
we're
nice.
having- Rainy? Yeah, we're having beautiful weather out here. As you guys know, Willie and I are coast to coast.
Yes, that's
And we're here, guys. And welcome. Foremost, welcome to everybody. Thank you once again for joining us on our weekly podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Welcome to the SCN Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. Guys, this is a weekly podcast that Willie and I, both born and raised in a canal zone, bring you every single Friday for 2 years now. Guys, this podcast is all about the history of the Panama Canal, its traditions, its towns, its people who we all kindly call Zonians, or as the shorty and slim crowd calls them, mango heads.
That's right.
Guys, this is a place where everybody knows your name and we talk about the latest, the greatest, what's coming up, what has just happened within the Canal Zone community.
That's right.
So let's prepare our drinks. Let's
Absolutely.
toast to this great society and this great story that we have, and
Yes.
to the eighth wonder of the world. Salud, everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Salute, everybody. Happy Friday and 7 p.m. Arkansas time. Absolutely, man. It's you know what? It's Zonian time anywhere in the world. It's always happy hour somewhere. So we always want to celebrate that and move on forward. Eric, good to see you, brother. Gracias again for the cold ones this morning. Appreciate that.
Yes.
You know,
What's
and
going on? Eric,
Matt, how you
Matthew,
doing,
right
brother?
on.
Good to see you, man.
Everybody's coming in, Willie.
Yeah,
Right
we got
on,
a
right
killer
on.
show tonight, man. Tonight we're going to talk about we're going back to the Panama Canal itself, right? We're going to talk about like I've mentioned a couple times previously about this, you know, the one constant you've had in this canal since 1904 when the first digging started. They started using those dredges out there, right? And they kept going, they kept going, they kept going. And that's something that has never stopped, right? This is a place where you constantly have to keep it maintained. There's been instances where they've decided to make it bigger, right? In addition to the, you know, to the upgrade they did, 15 years ago, whatever, with the new expanded locks. But even prior to that, they realized that that channel was very narrow. It limited the opportunities of running ships through there in two directions and things of that nature. So the dredging division has played a major role in keeping the canal open. They've had to deal with emergencies, with ships sinking, not just digging out
Landslides.
dirt and rocks and landslides, but, even the growth, the grass and the weeds and everything that, obviously, as in Panama, you could cut your grass and a week later you got to go out and cut it again, so
But we had people do that for us. So none of the,
Yes,
of
we
the
did.
benefits that
None
the
of the perks.
Zonians had.
yeah, for
None of
that
the
hardship
perks.
of having to live in a zone, right? You had to get all that stuff taken care of. So
And those guys were related. But those big machines, I remember the big chains in the front, and yeah. Guys
big
did a
giant
good job.
machines. They would pull into your neighborhood, and the other one, remember the other one that was always a regular feature was what?
Well, housing to come change our
No, that wasn't a regular
louvers.
feature. That was on occasion, but there was one that was a regular feature. That was very unique in the way it looked and the way they had it set up.
What the circles? The cutting them in circles?
No,
I don't
it
know.
wasn't grass cutting. It was something. What do y'all think? There was something else that was a regular feature in the zone. That was very unique in the way it was set up, the way it looked, the way they operated.
So
I'll
many
give you a
things. I
clue.
mean, we're not.
It made your dogs bark.
Huh.
It made the dogs bark when
Well, if it
this
made
was
the
occurring.
children follow it in bicycles, then that was an
No,
easy.
no. It wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. No, that's what. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are thinking. Hey, Jill, good to see you. That's
Good
what
to see you, Jill.
But no, it's not that. There's something else that was. It was a very regular.
Oh, the Coca-Cola guy. The
No, that one's. But there we go. Jim Duffus has it. Ding, ding, ding. Absolutely. Let's give him a little
garbage
sound
pickup.
effect.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
it was.
yeah. That was
Remember,
definitely.
they had those like Bronco Jeep, and then they had the 3 or 4 wagons connected behind them in trains. They had them all hooked up like trailers, and they'd pull them, and they'd go all around the block, and then those guys, and they had the big giant. I guess almost like that, like carts with a big giant garbage can on it. They would fill those up, do a couple of those, and then they take that and dump it into the wagon, and then they'd pull off in that wagon
I
train.
do not recall ever seeing them, but I'm sure they were there because the Canal Zone was extremely clean.
They did. They had them all connected. Remember, they had them all connected together. They would, they were basically bins, and
Yeah. I can vaguely remember now.
Hitch, and
But
they
yeah,
would
you're right.
connect like 2 or 3 or 4 of them and just cruise around neighborhoods filling them up. They didn't have the big
know
giant
what?
garbage trucks like you had here.
Those guys did such a good job because
Yeah,
when
they
you
did.
don't notice them, that's when they do a
Correct.
great job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Silence is good right there. For
That is
sure.
good. Well, right
But,
on. A little nostalgia there.
Yeah.
Of our townships.
Welcome to the weekend where the green beer and the salts are not wearing green. Yes, indeed. That's right. This is a month. This is definitely the month. It is month of March. So green
March
beer indeed.
Madness.
Welcome to the weekend. And yes, March Madness. I've got the
And Mark Cicero has a birthday in March. Couple of weeks.
Yes, he does. So Mark, Mark has come out with Panama Days. He's come out with Christmas on the Isthmus. He's come out with, and I don't know why I get this mental block on this name because he just made this video on it about New Orleans and Mardi Gras and Sinners or something or other. It's but he's got another great tune about it. Mark's got a great collection of tunes. If you look them up, guys, YouTube, make sure that it's CZ Mark Cicero or Mark Cicero CZ because there is another Mark Cicero out there that apparently sings or something. But
no, it's like people with my lap, just Ricky Royals out there. I'm like, what?
Right? What the hell's that, man? This is the real thing over here, man. You got to be on Happy at the Balboa Yacht Club if you see the real Ricky Royo. But yes, CSD Canal, exactly, Canal Sanitation Division. They were great, man. These guys were spot on every time, and they, like you said, you never had a problem. They were always there to take care of your garbage. Jeremy Panama out the boat. Oh, nice. Right on. Weather's great. Well, salute to you guys down
The
at
whole
the boat.
world's having a great weather right now. Well, you said East Coast having a little rain, but West Coast and Panama killing it.
Yeah, and my wife was in Dallas this week, and she said it had a lot of weather there.
Vern.
We had a little bit of it here. But Vern, good to see you, Vern. Hey, Vern's going to be on next week, guys. We're going to go and revisit the Atlantic side. So if you got
Atlantic
any
side,
questions
yeah.
about the Atlantic side, talk about some areas there. Like we've said in the past, Ricky and I vaguely know the Atlantic side from visiting for certain situations, but
and listen, viewers out there, anything you guys want to hear about the Atlantic side, make sure you let us know tonight so we prepare Vern for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bourbon Street Center, that's what it is. Yes. Bourbon Street Center. So check it out, guys. It's a really cool tune. Mark's tunes, they're thought provoking. The lyrics on all his tunes. That Panama Days one is for us Zonians. It's a real easy one to
Oh yeah, that
just
one sticks.
create memories. I mean, you could close the videos is great. It's a lot of fun to watch. But in all honesty, you can listen to that song, close your eyes, and you can go through a really cool video in your head if you grew up in the zone with that song. It's so easy to do because it brings back so many visions.
The best afternoons. Sorry, Willie,
No, you're good, brother.
Interrupt, but this is the best afternoons. I mean, I think we can all agree on this. The best afternoons we spent were at the Causeway.
Yeah,
and that's why that song hits us a certain way because there was a certain vibe out there. You were never fighting with your girlfriend out there, or you were never discussing, politics or none of that. It was a place, a vibe that was so peaceful and inviting because you could just basically park anywhere at any stop. It was so that's why that song hits the way it does.
It
So I
does, and
recommend it.
it's that the whole rustic nature of the causeway back then, right? Because you didn't have all the shops and stores and restaurants and piers and cruise ports and everything
6
else.
lanes to get out there now.
Yeah, it was just a very simple place, and you parked along the rocks there, and the really cool thing about it was that Zonians took care of it too. When you had, for
Oh
example,
yeah. We always took our stuff home. You're right. We never
we
left
did,
anything
man.
behind.
If you had the in-service school days or whatever, the exam days, everybody went to the causeway when they got out of class at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Right?
I'll
had a
tell you the
car-
real reason why the younger kids loved it out there, including me, was because we could see the cops coming way before they got there. We could hide our beers and stuff.
Very true. If you got busted out there, you're a fool because
You
your
weren't
head
paying
was not on a
attention.
swivel, man.
You
That's
weren't paying
very true.
attention, right?
But it was, man.
man.
It was a chill place. And then you know what? When everybody would leave, you wouldn't have a bunch of trash out there.
No,
And
that's
everybody would pick up
absolutely
their stuff
true,
and get the
Willie.
hell out
That
of there,
is
man.
so
Take care of it,
true.
And it was always nice to go out and stop at the package store there in Amador and say hello to Mr. Cheris, who knew everybody's name.
Or at the yacht club, the downstairs bar. That's another spot.
Right.
after
I'm saying when you go to get
causeway.
your beer to put in your cooler to go out to the causeway.
Go, yeah, either before or after, yeah. And then
You know?
us, my group, we'd always go to the KC because they had the sancochos for like $2. The
That's
best
right.
sancocho in the world, man. So you'd have to causeway, go get a sancocho, and then you would go home and eat dinner.
Go home and eat dinner, yeah, exactly. Or go and get laid out, and then you get laid out by your parents for what the hell you been doing out there? Oh no, well,
It's
I'm
6
fine.
o'clock. Your eyes are red.
Right. What happened? You were in school today?
I was at the pool, Mom.
It was great though, man.
All right, let's get this show. We're reminiscing way too
Oh,
much,
it's
man.
on
We
repeat.
love. That's what this show's about, guys. We get to go back and talk about some of the stuff that everybody
No, but
out here
listen, Pat makes
enjoyed
a
the
great
same
point,
thing we
though.
did.
He has a great point. You got 10 cents for those bottles, man. And it's
Oh,
not like we were-
that's a good point. That's why we didn't. Yeah, you're right
Hell
about that.
yeah, man. If somebody had laid a bottle there, I'm more than happy to pick that
Well,
shit up.
that's right. That's an excellent point. That's definitely the reason why.
Again,
Because
Zonians
it was
are-
money. Yeah, it was money.
absolutely. That's your next
That
round
was
of beer.
smart. That was actually a pretty smart deal.
It did. I mean, and for the beer company, it was great because they didn't have to keep making bottles.
Yeah.
People were more than happy to return them.
And
You
for the
know?
kids and the parents loved it because they knew the kids were going to come get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just leave it downstairs. And you know what? Last reminiscent, but in Balboa,
Last reminiscence. This whole show's about reminiscence.
I know. In Balboa, we all had certain houses that were dedicated to certain people. Like, like this house, that house, and that house, that was Ricky's house. Don't get those bottles, Or
Right.
that house over there was Raul's house. Or, we all had our
Right.
houses
And
where we got our bottles.
That was a big deal. I mean, before you were going to the beach, if you didn't have a lot of money, you do some cruising around. You knew where to go, or you'd find a couple of empty cases downstairs.
Yes, I remember. It was like with
You
the
grab 4
case
or
of
5 those
empties.
cases and you run four. I think 4 cases will get you a full one.
Yeah, because one empty case would be $7.20 for a full case of beer if you brought in your empties.
Correct. So
Back in the day.
yeah, there was ways to work that out, man, and that way save your money to get your food on your way out there at Quesos Chela. You get
Caribañolas.
go to
All
the
right,
British
all right.
Cruise
Where's
in
our
Carlos.
guest? Our guest waiting for us, Willie?
No, not yet. We're good. We got time. We got plenty of time. We're good, and we got other things to still talk about anyhow. So not to worry. We're not going to rush things. But yeah, that again, I'm excited about that because it's the dredging division is a big part of it. But it's a part we didn't know a lot about. Unless you were a part of it or your family worked in that, you really had no idea other than you've seen some of those names on things. If you paddled, maybe you paddled past there and saw them, but there wasn't it wasn't as familiar as the Canal Zone Police Station, the admin
Or
building,
the
and stuff.
pilots. Those guys
right,
all, yeah.
right. So it was always there, but there's kind of a mystique there that we want to learn what they did because they I mean, it was a
Tonight,
vital
We've got
role.
the
man.
right guy for tonight.
So, but anyhow, let's get some quick announcements going here to let people know what's going on in the Zonian community, and then we'll jump right into that if we can here.
SCN Television presents K Pasa. And now here's this evening's host, Army Sergeant Bob Foster.
Good evening and welcome to K Plaza. We've got 2 guests tonight. First Sergeant First Class Jim Webb. Sergeant Webb's with the 227th Military Police Detachment.
There you go. How about that? Huh? Little Herb Alpert there, but
I love it.
So Canal Zone right now, of course, we're in that mode of getting ready for the Canal Zone reunion coming up in July. And then, of course, there's a couple of other Zonian events going on prior to that. But let's real quick just go over a couple of things here. Why does this thing do that? I hate when it does that. Let me add this way. Bear with me here a second.
Well, while you're doing that, I want to wish Jose Payne a happy birthday today.
Yeah, of course.
He is a class of 81, and he is running one of the guys running our reunion. So we want to give him a good shout out, doing a good job. All you 81s out there, get a hold of Jose. We'll put up his email here in a minute. And right now we got 60 people. It's March, so by March you always have 60 people interested, and we'll just see where that goes. But still, 60 is a big number for a class of 81.
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
it's gonna be a good reunion. Hope you guys all make it. Mark Cicero is on the 26th, so Mark, you get 2 birthday celebrations this week and next. Well,
yeah,
2 more weeks after that, but you'll get 3.
Look at you.
He's got 3 good songs.
Yeah, exactly. They're one for each song. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so there it is. Here we go. Okay.
You got it? All right.
Yeah, of course. So anyhow, pancanalsociety.org is where you can always get, of course, all your Zonian information. So you should have that bookmark by now. But upcoming events for the Pan Canal Society in 2026. Obviously, just a few weeks ago was the Space Coast Potluck, but the next big deal is the Pan Canal Society and the University of Florida and the Friends of the Museum Luncheon. That's quite the title there. But they've got a luncheon and a museum tour coming up on the 28th of March at the end of the month. Okay. However, registration, you can't show up on the day of and register and expect to have, the food and all that good stuff, but register by the 19th of March. It's the schedule is 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Saturday.
Saturday, yes.
Saturday, March 28th at the University of Florida Smathers, I think, or Smathers, I don't know how you pronounce that, library. And again, the address 1545 West University Avenue in Gainesville. And again, pancanalsociety.org, you can get all that information. Make sure you get that done by the 19th of March. Great organization. Anything that's memorabilia-wise, guys, that you love to look at, anything from the phone books, remember, because they had the cool maps on the back of them, all the yearbooks, the spillways, the Pan Canal, the review magazines that came out, newspapers. I mean, these guys, you can go back to the Isthmian Canal Commission, their annual reports all the way back to like 1908. It's amazing the stuff that you can find there, the amount of pictures, and it's just a fantastic collection that really keeps that Canal Zone story going. And so, great organization. If you can make it, reach out and find out how you might be able to donate anyway to help them out, because it's a great membership to be involved.
Yeah, and we also want to shout out to all the donors of all these years. You guys have really done a great job, and without those donations, none of this stuff would be available to us. The museum,
you're absolutely right,
and the Canal Society. These are great organizations.
And sometimes people will reach out, or you'll see them post something on social media going, "Hey, I've got these items here. Does anybody want them or whatever?" Donate them to the museum, man. They're more than happy to take them. And if you're not familiar with them, but you go to the reunion, definitely check out the museum's section at the reunion. They've got a
silent auction
section, and they've got a silent auction. You can bid on some really, really cool stuff there. So definitely check them out. But anyhow, March 28th is their luncheon and museum tour, and you got to register by the 19th of March. Then move forward to May. The Paella in Palmetto is going to go on at the Artisan Lakes Amenity Center in Inglenook Terrace. And Ricky, you got more information on it, don't you?
On who?
On the Palmetto, isn't that
Kelly Morris?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of information on Kelly Morris if you guys are interested, but that is only for paid subscribers.
Correct. That's for our members only. No, but anyhow, if it's that's on.
She did have one last year, and it was a very good event. So
it is. It's a great event. So make sure if you're in that area, you're looking for something to do in May, get together with a lot of Zonians. Anytime you get together with Zonians, it's a great time anyway. So
and Kelly organizing it, she's very good at that. Yep. Has been her whole entire life since second grade.
There you go. So anyhow, that would be the 16th of May in Palmetto, the Paella in Palmetto.
Yes.
They've got a link on the website there for registration and all that stuff. Sign up before May 8th if possible. Again, they want to plan. Anytime you're bringing food or something, they want to plan accordingly. So,
yep.
And then of course, moving forward to July, outside of the reunion, of course, these are just some other picnics here, but in Oregon. On the 15th of July is a Pan Canal Society Northwest picnic in Prineville, Oregon. And Jim Duffus, who chimes in here all the time, his email is on there. Reach out to him if you need to get more information on that. It's MRCLOVER, Mr. Clover 8082 at hotmail.com. So reach out to him there. And then moving forward to the September 12th picnic up in North Carolina in Denton. There's a Canal Zone Pan Canal Society picnic out there. Contact Sheila Webb Tucker at naper74 at yahoo.com. And so just check these guys out, pancanalsociety.org. You can see the address scrolling on the bottom there if you have any information there. And then, of course, you know, the big event for the society, of course, is the reunion, right? That's the Super Bowl of Zonian events every year.
Correct.
It's in Orlando as always. And let me see here.
It's always the largest meeting of Panama Canal Society people. You know, all
Without a doubt.
That's where we're going to run into the most Zonians.
It is
in one place.
Yep. A lot of Zonians go there. The one in Panama is growing and it's becoming more and more popular. That one, of course, is more of a destination type reunion. And then again, because of the travel involved and those types of commitments involved, typically you get graduating classes that go down as a group to kind of go back to where they all graduated back in the day. So that makes it kind of fun and special. It's a different reunion than what you have here in Orlando.
Yeah,
this one here,
that was more individualized. This is more group where you're all together.
You're all together.
Where you meet
get to
family and classmates and childhood friends.
And just hang out and maybe spend some time just
make some new friends, actually. Yeah.
So both of them are just fantastic offerings. You know, in Panama, you will be busy. You're on your feet a lot. You're going to different locations to experience it because you're going back to where you were, you know, where you're born and raised, right? And so it's not Orlando for 99% of the people there is, you know, there's nothing there but a hotel and a bunch of Zonians. But when you go to the reunion in Panama, that's what I'm saying. But when you go to Panama, you've got a railroad, you got a canal over here, you got this over here. So it's not realistic to think you're going to be in a hotel for 4 days. But here, it's the opposite. Panama, Here's where you're going to hang out and talk to people, catch up with people, right? Have those great conversations. Over there, you're going to be like, hey, man, let's go here. Remember this place? And do that more of that activity. But enough of that. You know, everybody kind of gets the
if you haven't gone, you definitely got to go. Yeah. You're gonna you know pool parties and high school reunions and clubhouse.
The reunion in Orlando, it really is. It's an event. And
bingo,
it's great,
cultural
great
seminars.
Yeah, it is.
Lots of prices,
lots of things to do, and the beauty of it is that everything is all within that one location. So it's you know if you're busy doing something else, you can skip out and run into somebody. It's not going to take long to run.
Yeah, you're not going to sleep much, but don't worry, you'll sleep when you get home.
That's it. Now, this year, guys, it's not the July 4th weekend. It's the weekend after. So it starts the 8th of July, going through the 12th of July. Okay. Rose and Shingle Creek Resort in Orlando. There is a link for reunion information there. The biggest key, 2 keys to keep in mind here. The biggest one is make sure that you renew your membership for the society. You have to be a member of the Pan Canal Society, and it's worthwhile exactly because you get a fantastic discount. But the other thing is, keep in mind the deadline, May 29th, right? They've got a lot of things that they're trying to take into account. They want to try and get head counts. They want to finalize a lot of things. So, you know, they got a lot of rooms to take care of. This is a big, giant resort hotel that accommodates not just the society, right? So they've got to manage these rooms and they need time to do it. So make sure you take care of that. If you have any information you need to answer there, office at pancanalsociety.org is where you can get that taken care of. Ricky, here's your big soiree that you're all.
Oh, yes. Let me talk about that. Guys, this is, I don't want to say Kelly Morris put this together, but this looks like a Kelly Morris thing to me. Saturday, the big formal. Guys, that used to be the event, and then it kind of slacked off. That's my opinion. Maybe it didn't, but in my opinion, it did. The soiree is now what they call it. So remember, listen, it's Saturday like always, but this one there's like a pre-party and a party, right?
Yep.
The pre-party would be the 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Come, you know, it's semi-formal. You can wear nice jeans, just not ripped jeans, right? Or shorts, or chancletas,
make it a
or
nice
t-shirts, or tank tops. Semi-formal to formal. I'm going formal. If I can bring my tux, I'm going to wear it. Guys, it starts at 6 to 7 with a happy hour.
The big giant tie like that. Yeah.
Oh, like our high school picture. Remember the high school picture? We had those big ties.
Yeah. Massive ties.
Well, from 6 to 7 is the happy hour. You don't want to miss that. And then the dinner is served from 7 to 8. Every table is going to have a bottle of wine. All right. Then they're going to have these polleras come on from 8 to 9. And a murga. So, you know, you have drinks, Then you have your meal, and then you have a little show afterwards. And then from 9 to 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning is the reunion ball, where we're going to be doing a lot of dancing to some good lucho type music. Unless they changed it, but it normally is the lucho type music.
There you go.
So, guys, Saturday, don't save your energy, save everything. We'll see you there Saturday night.
The Grand Tivoli Soiree, they're calling it. So don't miss that, guys. That's going to
Soiree.
be a lot of fun. And, you're right. That is something that's kind of, oh, look at that. Thank you. Who we got here?
Hey, right on. Thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Mark. Appreciate you, brother. Absolutely. Yeah, the Saturday night ball really has kind of lost that luster, I guess, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, it
And
just became like another DJ evening, like the
just
Friday night,
exactly.
Thursday
It was
night.
another place
Oh,
to
yeah.
hang out, whatever. And then it becomes, something where the hangout seems to be outside, right? And
And the big event is how to sneak in.
right, and
You
which is
know,
a Zonian,
I got in,
it is a
you got
Zonian
stuck in.
tradition, but not at the reunion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we did that at Balboa Theater, and we did that at a couple other places, but that's not for this place.
Believe me, last reunion I was at, people my age were trying to figure out how to sneak in.
But I remember going back to, for example, the reunions. The first time I went to the reunion was back in 1986 in Tampa.
Oh, that was my first too.
And I remember Saturday night, which of course at that point I was a young punk. I just graduated high school and didn't know any better, didn't care, and plus I was broke. So I wasn't going to that Saturday night ball. Why? Because when that elevator opened, I mean, everybody was decked to the nines, right?
Yep.
And it was an event. It was a cool place to really elevate your game, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it's kind
Your
of
social
faded away.
skills.
Yes, exactly. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad they're doing that, because that's
Me too.
And listen, if
And-
you don't want to do it, don't do it. There's plenty of places to hang out. There's bars all around that area, so it's not like be there or not, whatever. But
try to make
if
it.
you
Listen,
are, make it and have a great time. And like, remember we talked about last week, Ricky. Prom. That was fun to dress up that way.
yeah.
It was a blast to go with your
Oh,
friends.
that's what
and
we
go
can
out.
look at it. It's prom night.
Yes, make it your
Take
prom
your
night,
date, take
man.
your wife,
Heck
prom
yeah,
night, your
man.
daughter or your son or whatever. But we'll leave the menus out of this world. This is why you want to go. Summit Garden Salad.
How about that?
Sosa Hill Ropa Vieja.
Wow.
And for the people who don't eat meat, Rainforest Ropa Vieja.
Okay.
And that, last but not least, Gold Coast Salmon. So, guys,
Wow.
it's an amazing menu.
Okay. And now, when do you have to have confirm that one?
I
Gotta find out, because
we gotta find out,
probably by the 29th as well, if nothing
I'm
else.
gonna promote it like crazy on this show, because I think
Yeah,
it
heck yeah.
needs to be the big event
Agreed.
like it used to be.
Agreed.
But I would get my tickets early in, because if it sells out, you're left out. But it is a biggie. It is one of the bigger halls there, so there should be room for everybody.
No, absolutely. And then again, guys, the site can always use the help. So they're looking for sponsors, reunion sponsors. That vendor area. There's a ton of vendors in there. Some of you vendors, step up and throw some money to the society, as a sponsor. Right? Is it going to increase your sales? Maybe, maybe not. But you know what? These guys put on a great function that gives you the opportunity to offer your wares anyway. So help keep it going.
Oh,
and
they
help
do
support
pretty
it,
well.
man.
All those vendors do well.
I would assume so,
Like
man.
I said,
So you know what?
you-
Part of it is sponsor them, man. It's just a way to come back and say, hey, thanks for putting on a great event that I was
would
able to
say
make money
that's
on.
a good thing, Willie.
You know?
But listen, you got to go there Thursdays. If you wait till Saturday to get to the vendors, perdón, but there's not going to
Yeah,
be the
didn't-
same amount of goodies as they were on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my day to
And there
visit.
again, also, if you want to become a vendor, there's a link there as well. So pancanalsociety.org, all your information is there. The links to get signed up, to request information, it's all there. But first and foremost, become a member of the Pan Canal Society if you're not already.
Mhm.
Okay, you're talking $60 for the year. That's a buck and change a week, man. A very, very affordable rate for a fantastic organization that does a lot for the Canal Zone. So
And keeps the society together. The
there we
Canal
go.
Zone.
All right, what are we talking here? Class of 96, I Sarao, compa. Okay, there you go. There you go. And what
Good
else?
to
we
have you,
got,
Mike.
Mike's BHS bowl football games Friday night by the bowl. That was nothing like that, man. Nothing like that. That was a great time in the zone, man. Was football Friday night lights, man. It was
That goes way back to
Yeah.
the 60s.
It does.
And even
50s.
further back.
Listen, the 50s, there's articles of I remember there's an article of I always looked at Will Nickisher as a referee because he was always a fixture out there on the field when I played football. But guess what? He played quarterback for the Bulldogs in the 50s. It's a cool story, man. It's an awesome Zonian legacy, that football one, for sure, man. It's a great time to bring that up.
My dad played down there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that was
55 and 56.
way before the Rams were even thought of. That you had football and you had only 2 high schools, so you had other junior highs. I remember Rainbow City had a like, I think, a junior high, if I'm not mistaken. You had a college team, and also had what was it, like a workers team? What would you consider that as, kind of because remember, one of the teams was adults.
Oh, no, it was the
athletic club.
The athletic club. Yeah, those guys were the coño, ¿cómo se?
The guys that didn't go to college.
No, they went to the what do you call it? The apprenticeship program, the apprenticeship school. That's what those guys were from.
Okay, all right, right on. That makes sense. That's kind of a schooling in a way. Okay, right on. Cool. Also, guys, don't forget the Balboa Invitational Tournament here in Tampa, the 9th through the 14th of November. The great golf outing on that one. Make sure you check that one out if you can. That's a lot of fun. A lot of Zonians here in the West Central Florida area that golf, man. So, hopefully we can get a big group out there. Yeah, SDAC, okay, so I know I would assume it's athletic club, but what are we thinking SD is? SDAC. What are you thinking, Ricky?
I don't know. I have no clue.
SD something athletic club, but let's see here. Let me see what I used to jump the fence at RT, never come out of top. I was thinking, all right.
Yeah, well, that's a true Zonian right there, Mike.
Yeah.
We all snuck into every football game we could, except my age group. We went behind the bowling alley, and then there was a fence, and there was a gutter that went underneath, little cement gutter.
Yeah, man, I never did that. If I don't know what about that wigged me out, I was like, nah, I'm good, man.
Really? And then you would just swoop, put your body here, sneak your way right under, boom, you'd be right there by the.
I think I would wait like when
rooms.
the ambulance would show up, and they'd open that gate, you run in real quick. All right, SDAC is Schools Division Athletic Club. Thank you, Jim.
Got it. Well, we have a something really similar to that we can inform you guys of in Colón. They inaugurated a stadium today there that they've been working on a stadium forever, and it's called the Roberto Mariano Bula. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is he was a big-time mentor and community leader of Colón back in the day, and now he has his own stadium named after him.
Right. Okay. That's right. I did see that. That's right. Yes.
Beautiful stadium. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me look at something here. We're getting some technical issues here.
Oh, and as I was mentioning too, more Canal news. 41 transits going through. Panama's doing their job to help out with the global shipping issues we're having right now. So the Canal normally, guys, does 36 transit a day. They've been up 41 for the last week, and they're not going to continue at 41. And the reason why they can get to 41 in the summer is because they had so much water from the last rainy season that they had plenty of water to put 41 ships through a day. But they're going to stop that because we are at the end of dry season.
Right.
And they have a full lake, and we got rainy season coming. So there's going to be a lot of spillway activity this year.
Yeah.
Oh, something else going on in Panama, Willie. Espocomer. Now, those guys have been there since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember that. It's a big event in Panama. All you Zonians probably remember hearing the Espocomer. It's just where all these entrepreneurs get together from all over Latin America, and they come to Panama and do their convention. But it's going on this weekend. So if you're in Panama, Espocomer, go check it out. Oh, something else from Colón, Willie.
Yeah.
Your friend Chen, he had this big event called Sabores de Colón. And what that is a food event. And he wants to turn it into a international event.
Yes.
So I believe this is the first year, maybe the second year, but 120,000 people showed up to Colón to go eat this. Their food right now is the in thing. The city of Colón, $2 million generated from this event. So that's really good for the city of Cologne, for everything Cologne. They sold out all the hotel rooms, all the restaurants. 200 chefs showed up. 200 chefs.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, that was a big event. So next week we'll have Vern here talk more about Cologne.
Yeah.
And we'll get our Cologne IQ.
I'll tell you, that's amazing that how Panama has become a culinary destination now.
Out of
and then
nowhere.
Cologne is even trying to match that as well. And really Cologne needs something to jumpstart that city. And I think that might be a good route for it because that will draw
a lot of
people
things
in.
happening there, yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
that's pretty
awesome. Fingers crossed, because it's been like that forever. Every government comes in, they promise a lot, but let's see if it finally takes off. And Cologne gets its shining city that they deserve. Well, the stadium is a good start,
right? Yeah, no, it really is. And I mean, again, that's an up and coming place now. It's really they're really looking to take that to another level, So, what's going on with Panama right now, and not just Cologne, but both ends of the canal with the ports? And a lot going on there.
Let me update you guys, because this is one of our. We've been updating you guys weekly on this, because this stuff changes.
And I got to jump off for a quick second, so go ahead. Go for it, Willie.
We've got so much going on with this port, and we've been informing you, right, from the day from when they went to the courts to when they got through the courts, and then all the reaction from the Chinese. Well, what this week's latest events have been that China is now trying to retaliate a little bit, because they are stuck. That they got kicked out of Panama, a small country kicked them out. And they obviously have issues with other ports as well. So Costco, who is the shipping company, they decided that they were no longer going to use the Panama Canal or the ports. So that started the week. And of course, Panamanians, the Panamanian government and businesses were caught by that as a surprise. Like, why would they do that? There's no alternative. The alternative would be more expensive, and shipping's all about reducing price, not making it more expensive, especially with gas. So at the beginning of the week, everybody was nervous. What's going to happen? Chinese are pulling out. But today, after, I guess, reconsidering, or some people have been saying they've been negotiating with the government, they have decided that no, they are staying afterwards. After all, they're not going to be leaving Panama anytime soon. But at the same time, they're also reported that they're going to provide more inspections to our Panamanian flagships. So a little bit of tit for tat going on this week, guys, with the ports. And so we'll see what ends up happening. The president did say last week, or whenever this exploded, that he taking it, he's not going to escalate, because he feels like there is no alternative. So we might as well treat each other with respect and continue doing business, which has been a good line that he's been holding on to not create a national crisis with the ports. So all that being said, guys, it looks like the Chinese are going to be pulling out. Out of the ports. They're no longer running it, but they're going to continue to do business with Panama, because truly there is no other. The alternative is all the way around Argentina, or all the way, on the North Pole. So that's what we have going on this week on the ports. So Willie, we almost got Willie back, and we are going to be bringing on our guest tonight, Lance Winkowski from Gamboa, I believe. Guys, so back to Willie is getting ready. You almost ready there, Willie? Willie? All right, we'll continue talking about the ports. So why is China backing off a little bit now? Because they heavily rely on the canal infrastructure, right? For all their gas.
Oh, yes.
a lot of their goods because they use the sola libre de Colón all the time. So they heavily rely on Panama. So, guys, I think our president was right by saying that he doesn't think much is going to happen. And so far, only our Panamanian flagships will probably have an extra inspection at Chinese ports. Which, I mean, with tit for tat, Panama can do the same, right? That have to inspect their ships before they go through the locks. But why get into that? That's what the president's saying. Let's just be respectful and keep doing business because there is no alternative.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic that's been created here. I mean, we've really recognized now and seen what China, who China is, right? What their intents are, and what happens when they're told no. You know how they respond, but oftentimes people have argued that everybody depends on China for all their goods, but that's a two-way street. China depends on those goods being purchased in order to stay alive
and shipped.
And exactly. And so in order to purchase them, you have to ship them. And if you can't ship them, it puts them in a tough situation as well. So, I think everybody knows where everybody stands. There's some public posturing out there, and that's probably more so
for
get people to pat
local
back at
consumption.
home. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think at the end of the day, there's a whole lot that's going to occur here with regards to China that's going to force Panama to suddenly say, hey, okay, you know what, we're sorry. Your ports back. That ship sailed, for lack of a better term. So, hey, Paul, what's up, man? Good evening, man. Good to see you, brother. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. We are having some technical issues with our guest Lance. So we're going to still trying to work to get that connection going. But we do have some, Lance obviously, brings a lot of knowledge and experience to the table. But we did do a lot of research on this stuff, and so there's a lot of cool things here where we, if he can't join us, we still may pull some information up just to view it and look at it and chat a little bit about it, and then bring him back then to give us the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty. Because like I said, it's a great story. The whole dredging, how that operation worked, and some of this equipment they were using, was used for a long time. Some of that stuff was built right when the canal was just opening up, and they were still using it into
built
the 70s.
by Hitler as well.
That's one of them, and I don't know why Ricky's so hung up on that, but
I just think it's crazy that we have a Nazi crane in the Canal Zone.
Sure, but it wasn't Nazi because in actuality it was done before the Nazis. It was that crane was built in the 1920s, but
okay.
But yes, it was one of them, and of course, we've in the canal construction itself, a name that's synonymous with canal construction was Bucyrus, and they had those big steam shovels on the ground out there on the rail lines. They also built one of the big steam dredges that did the same thing, but floating as opposed to on a rail line, and to a much bigger scale. So, oh, excellent! That's right. You know what? And let's do this. Let's do this. Well, I might send you a link and have you join us if you don't mind. But because there's a lot that we put into this thing. There's a lot of really cool information on there. So I think it'll be really cool to see it. What's going on here? My whole screen just disappeared. But so anyhow, let's do this. Let me shoot you a link. All right, bear with me just a second here. And in the meantime, Ricky, what do you got going on? What else is going on? What's going on in the soccer world? Anything going on with Team Panama?
Well, we have the game coming up against South Africa, and they're right now putting together the team that's going to go play there. And everybody is petitioning for Kadir to be on this traveling team. That's the young kid that's playing in Brazil, who, by the way, scored had another two score game just recently. This kid has got a gun for his shot at goals are just unbelievable, and the distance that he shoots them from, with the power. Wow, it's gonna be an amazing young man to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's and the thing about him is this guy. What if there's ever a how would you say a affirmation of who you are as far as your soccer abilities is that this guy there he's being courted by the Brazilian national team, because in international soccer, they have rules regarding, what country you can represent, and it involves, couple of, generations kind of thing. In fact, kind of like what we learned about with citizenship with Rodolfo a few weeks ago, that your kids and your grandkids are eligible to play for that national team.
Well,
And
like
so-
like the World Baseball Classic, the
Correct.
Italians.
There you go. And so with that rule in play, there's a Brazilian connection to this guy, and they're trying to get him to play there. Now, if you think about that, Brazil is, considered one of the elite countries for soccer, and nobody can argue that. They've won World Cups, they've won, their players are superstars in Europe, and if they want this guy, that means this guy has got some serious pedigree on him, and there's definitely an interest there in this guy, and he wants to play for Panama. Although I think he recognizes what he can do here, and I mean, his mom is big in promoting him in Panama when he's playing and stuff. It's really cool to see if you start following that stuff, but it's going to be fun to see this guy, 'cause he's an elite player. Yeah,
I keep an eye on it. Keep you guys informed because I do like the kid. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me do this.
It's a 75. Right on.
Jim, is Bill available to join us? If so, I would, I'll shoot him a link real quick. If he's willing to, that would be kind of cool. But yes, Kadir needs to get promoted to the world 100%. It's a no-brainer. Okay, the one thing I see in Panama in their team, watching them, especially during those last qualifiers, Panama plays based on raw talent and raw skill. Okay, you can see that they're. What I think Panama lacks is still there may be another half a generation away from having kids that play tactical soccer, right? Where they know positioning and ball movement and stuff. And you can see it with teams like Spain and England and Germany. And, Brazil's a little different. Brazil they just got ridiculous talent there. But a lot of these countries, France is a great example, very disciplined team. They have a lot of great ball movement. When you see Panama play, it's almost like, I mean, a guy is getting pulled down and he managed to rip off of the guy and keep his balance and somehow get away, and so you see the talent is there, and you see that the next step is there. Now when you combine that then with a natural instinct for the game, Panama is going to be going places, and I think that's where Kadir can take them to that next level, because he does have that. He's an elite player. You can definitely see that. He's still young, but he's an elite player, and I think he'll do Panama a lot of good.
Yeah, what I heard the coach say is one of the reasons why he hasn't been selected just yet to be on the team is because when they play at the World Cup, Panama normally has to play defense.
Correct.
So they bring less forward.
They play a counterattacking game.
Right. So 2 of the forwards on Panama's team are already set. This guy Waterman, and I forget the other guy's name.
Yeah, but you need depth. I mean, an injury is one play away.
So right now they're debating whether to bring 4 forwards or 3.
Yeah.
4 doesn't make sense, especially since they're playing defense. But
Correct.
So that's why it's difficult. That's why everybody wants to see this.
Well, and they're going to be playing against some attacking teams too. Croatia, Ghana, and England are all attacking teams. So you're absolutely right. Panama's best shot at winning a game in this group or drawing a game and maybe moving on is to play a counterattacking game, meaning you set up, absorb the punishment, let them have possession, but then use that speed when you have a breakout and just send that ball downfield and go, and hopefully it'll work out for you. But yeah, I'm still liking Panama's chances. I really do think that going into it,
might win our first game.
I think people are not expecting Panama to go there. Ghana is one of those teams. They have a lot of African players that play in Europe, right? So there's some name recognition there. Croatia's won tournaments. They've got a pedigree themselves. And England, you don't have to say anything about England. So Panama's not looked at as the threat there.
The good thing about Ghana is their coach. Their coach is not bringing all those star players. He's only going to bring the players that practice, that were there, not the big players that only show up at the end. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's going to help us a lot.
Yeah.
That they're not bringing in all that talent from the European League. We'll see at the end of the day.
You know, the one knock that the United States has always had, and I truly believe that if the United States changes their approach to youth soccer here, they will win World Cups. They will dominate because the United States just has so much more resources and availability. But in the United States, to play club soccer as a kid, it is very, very expensive. It's right up there with hockey. It's ridiculous how expensive it is. Okay. And in Europe, it is free everywhere. In South America, it is free everywhere. And when these guys finally get to 12, 13 years old and they're serious and they have talent, they've already been playing in the club atmosphere for many years. They already understand tactics and formations and movement. And that's the problem that the US has, is that you got, and you're competing at some big sports. You know, a lot of people still, you know, don't run around bragging in high school that they're on the soccer team like they do about the playing on a football team or being the pitcher on a baseball team, you know? So it's the U.S. is doing pretty good in spite of really being held back just because of their own, you know, mindset, you know. But I mean, dude, it'll cost you $1,000 in Florida to play in a club team a year. As a kid. Okay. I mean, and that's not the kid that's, you know, that's got the talent to go places. That's just the kid that's playing soccer for the club. That's what they charge, man. It's a whole different game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But anyhow, yeah, like I said, Jim, let me know if Bill would be willing to join us. I'll send him a link and get him on, because unfortunately I don't think I'm able to get this connection fixed with Lance here, and we've got some really cool dredging division information. If not, you can certainly just chime in the chat and see what we can do there. But before that,
we can wing this. We got because your graphics are so good, and of course our little background that we do on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Research
absolutely.
that we do.
So, but let's get some bills paid here real quick, and then we'll move forward with it here.
We're still looking for our Howler Monkey hot sauce spokesperson. Just got an email from Panama.
You've got mail.
Hey, I'm Mac, and I grew up behind Howard Air Force Base in Panama. I can talk about hot sauce. On pizza, uy, que rico. So I just miro la camera and say, I'm Mac. I grew up in these trees next to Howard Air Force Base. Hey, are we really going to Napoli? And let me tell you, the flavors of ají chombo, garlic, and onions, they each hit you one at a time, and it's so delicious. Howler Monkey Original brings the true taste ají chombo of Panama to your pizza game.
Do you know a Howler Monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original with authentic ají chombo peppers, or the fresh punch of verde where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, fired up with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
Oh, you're the next Howler Monkey spokesperson. That's a lot of fun doing those. And honestly, those hot sauces are awesome, guys. They are absolutely fantastic. If you haven't tried them, go on Amazon. You can order them on there. Just look for
and
Howler
try them
Monkey.
on your pizza. I finally did that, and it is good.
It does elevate the game, man,
it
because it's
does
got a good
elevate the
taste to
game.
it.
Yeah.
Right? It does have a flavor to it. The hot one does have heat. No doubt about it. You know, habaneros do give some heat. But the other ones, you know, that ají chombo is it gives you a kick, but it's enough to wake up your taste buds, you know, and then you can really get some of those flavors out of it. And, you know, and yeah, they're just fantastic. In Florida, you can get them at a couple of different grocers. I know in Panama, you can get them at Magoo's, and then of course on Amazon, get them there. There's 4 different flavors. They got a great deal on a 4-pack there. You know, we might have to do something here. Once we have all 4 spokespersons have presented themselves, we're gonna have to vote on one, and maybe the winner, whoever, you know, participates in that, maybe get a 4-pack of Howler Monkey or something. We'll
Yeah, I'm sure our sponsor will throw that in for sure.
yeah. If not, we can do it there. I mean, we appreciate them taking care of us all this time, so we might return the favor to do that for them. But yeah,
All right.
if you do try, let us know which is your favorite, because I'd like to, a little informal poll here. Which one is the one that
See
you
which
like
one
the most?
everybody
Because I like
like.
the amarillo, man. That to me is
Me
that's
too.
spot on,
That's the one
man.
I put on my pizza.
It's got flavor.
So what are we
man.
looking at here, Mr. Willie?
So what we got here then is we're going to start this off. And again, we're going to talk today about the dredging division, right? Because these guys have really, I mean, this is a necessity, right? It's not something that's an option. It's a luxury, in the canal.
they're
especially
as
with seasons
important.
and everything.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. Landslides were a big deal during construction, right? When they opened, they actually had a landslide that closed the canal for 7 months way back in the day, right? And that, as we've seen now, the Panama Canal, like the Suez Canal, and probably even more so, is such a pivotal part of global commerce that you put a stop to movement on the Panama Canal, you're impacting pricing around the world instantly. We're seeing right now what the waterways in the Middle East are doing, with those choke points there to do something to pricing. So, it is something that definitely the Panama Canal plays one of those roles, and it's essential. And part of that, keeping that waterway open, is to make sure that ships can get through and not get, run aground, not, all those other great things. So that's our show tonight, was the dredging division. So we're gonna try and wing it here and see if we actually can remember what we learned. And if you know something about this in the chat, by all means, feel free to throw it in. And if you were involved in this and you want to jump on board, shoot me a message and I'll send you the link, and you can jump on, and we'll get you on here. As you see, we got a space there. Our guest, unfortunately, isn't able to make it this evening, but anyhow, so here's a layout of the dredging division. This is Gamboa, guys. If you look on the regular maps, and I thought I had one queued up earlier, but the dredging division initially was set up in Paraiso, and then they eventually moved over to Gamboa because it was right at the crossroads of, the entrance to the Culebra Cut, the Pacific, exit, and the Chagres River conversion.
Chagres, yep.
Right. And obviously, as we know, the Chagres River is what supplies the Panama Canal with its water primarily, right? It fills up that lake. And so that area has a lot of movement, a lot of water movement, and consequently, you got to constantly keep digging it out and keep it nice and clean and deep enough to get the ships to work in there. So they figured out that it's best to have this as close to, if nothing else, maybe even centralized, right? So you can get stuff.
I was going to say, that seems to be the center. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Gamboa pretty much is in the center of the canal, if you look at it that way. So kind of an interesting layout there. And this is where I was hoping that Lance was going to tell us what like a typical day would be for him, right? Jump in your truck or your car, whatever, and you drive over to Gamboa, you drive in here, you park, and what do? Do you jump on a dredge? Do you jump on a launch, on a tugboat to take you out to a dredge, or, all that cool stuff? Because there's a lot of different equipment there that we're going to see on here that they used, and kind of understand where each one worked, how it worked, and what its purpose was, right? So I guess we can kind of try and go into that a little bit here, and Jim just chimed in that he's trying to get his brother to jump on. So hopefully, if we can, fingers crossed, if we can. I know it's very last minute, so I'm if anybody can, great. I don't expect you to. It is very last minute, but anyhow, let's see what we can do here. So this here is the U.S. Rialto M. Christensen. And that was the newest dredging piece of equipment, as far as large equipment. I'm sure between, since then they've probably purchased other stuff. But, this was a big dredge that they purchased in 1971. Okay. And Ricky, there's an interesting trivia about this, isn't there?
That's the one from Germany?
No.
Oh.
No, Heil Ricky. But there was, so if you notice, a lot of their big heavy equipment, the names were all locations. You had Cascadas, right?
Cascada.
You had the Mindy, right?
Oh,
and so,
right. So the last one, they decided,
correct,
that they weren't going to name it after a town. What did they decide to name it after?
They named it after an employee of the dredging division, Rialto M. Christensen. I believe it was because maybe he had perished in an accident. Typically that's how you honor, it'd be something like that. Or maybe he did something amazing there, or maybe he created something incredible there. Not sure, but that was kind of a change in tradition where they actually named it after a person, because prior to that they were either that or like mythological names, right? Like Hercules, Goliath, and things like that as well. But this is what this one was. So now again, this is a much newer vessel here. It was 7,800 cubic yards in 8 hours. Okay. A cubic yard, if I'm not mistaken, you can fit not quite 2, but almost 2 cubic yards in a regular sized dump truck. So that'll give you kind of the reference of how much this thing could scoop up, right? And when we go back to look at the first Bucyrus steam shovels during construction back in 1905, they were 95-ton steam shovels, and at that time they were the biggest ones in the world. They were massive, and you look at the equipment that the French had left there, and it's no wonder they couldn't do anything. I mean, it was just so underperforming on what they needed. And then of course you got these big beasts here. The other big key difference here with this one is that they actually had diesel motors, right? A lot of the stuff prior to that used steam. And one thing that if you understand how steam works when it comes to mechanical and stuff, and I learned this years ago from my dad, was that steam offers you and you know what, I mean, you didn't even tell me that I hadn't switched the screen, Ricky. Sushi logo, ayuda logo. All this time we're looking at the other one, I'm talking away, and like people are looking at this stuff and nobody's looking at the screen here. But anyhow, so steam gives you unlimited power. Okay. The limitation is the equipment that it's held in, right? A boiler, the pressure that it builds up. But I mean, the pressure builds up enough, it will move anything, right? And so therefore it'll push a valve further and dig deeper and go harder into rock and whatnot. So steam was always used because it was very effective, but very clunky, very dirty, very messy, required it was all mechanical, a lot of moving parts and whatnot. So they switched over to these diesel ones, and those engines are 320,000 pounds of force in those as generated by those engines. I mean, so it's incredible what those are able to do. A 15 cubic yard bucket. So again, massive amounts in each one of those scoops that you're lifting up. And it has a 60-foot digging depth. Right. So it'll get to all the way to the bottom, of the canal. Remember the canal depth, what they need there in that canal. So it certainly is able to reach as far down as you need to scoop things up and keep that channel open. So it is a record breaking dimensions, as they mentioned on there. And again, this was in 71. It may not be currently a record breaker anymore, but nonetheless, quite an impressive machine there. This
I mean, the whole ship is 2 engines, basically.
Right, and massive ones there. Lloyd Kent would dive off the top of the Hercules into the canal. Amazing. Oh, wow, that's incredible.
Of course.
Such a Zonian thing to do, right? Yeah.
I mean, we jumped off every bridge we could, and
Right.
that was just a Zonian thing. We loved to jump off things.
Yes, it was.
The
No
French
kidding.
Cut, Coakley Bridge,
exactly
San
right.
Carlos Bridge.
That's exactly right. That was a thing, man. That was a thing. So that was a Rialto, but they had other equipment. They had equipment that had been around there, prior to that one. One of them was the Cascadas, right? And we know that name Cascadas. If that name sounds familiar, you've probably heard it uttered on this show plenty of times. Our own Captain Andrew Eftimitis, he has a bed and breakfast in the canal zone called Cascadas Lodge, right? It's a great place to stay, guys. If you're going down either for the Canal Zone reunion coming up in January or any other time to visit, it's right in the middle of Balboa. It's a great location. And I mean, the prices are ridiculous. You don't even need a Zonian discount. They offer such a great deal on it. So definitely check them out. But we're not plugging Cascadas right now. We're talking about the Cascadas, dredge here. Let's see what Jim's saying here. The crane boat Atlas would move a 55-ton lock locomotive from one side. Yes, they absolutely would. We're going to talk about that here because they absolutely would. I mean, these things were massive. They would sail them into the locks there and then use it to actually lift these things up. It's amazing. That's how when they switched out the old locomotives for the new ones. That's one of the ways they did it. But bear with me. So anyway, that's the Cascadas. Couple of interesting points here. 1915 was when this thing was made. So this is right around the time the canal opened, right? The canal had just opened when they were making it. So it was still, again, using that steam technology. 1,500, is that say tons? I can't even see my screen there. 1,500 ton giant featuring a massive boom and machinery weighing 115,000 pounds. God, that's incredible. With a dipper handle alone weighing 81,000 pounds. That's massive. And you see the way it worked is they had that pivot point right in the middle of that big giant boom. And that one, through those pulleys, they lift the bucket up and down, right? And then there's another set of pulleys that move that entire boom up and down. And that's how you get your forward motion and your scooping and everything. And then in this case, though, I would imagine there's a rotating piece there. You know, with these infographics, all the times the drawings, they try and get as close as they can. But I can't imagine this thing would scoop up dirt and then they have to turn the whole ship to dump it. I'd imagine maybe that thing can maybe pivot, but I could be wrong. Maybe they really do have to do that, or bring in a barge, dump it, and then move the barge out or something. Who knows? But kind of interesting to see what they did there. After a 63-year primary career breaking tough rock formations, it remained the essential backup for the new $86 million Rialto Christensen. So, you know, they didn't just get rid of it right away. They kept it as a plan B, right? And things happen. The other ones have to go into maintenance. So, you know, maybe something like this, they don't make it in Panama. So sometimes if a part breaks, it may be weeks before you get a new part for it. And you got your little brother.
But I would assume the Canal Zone had a shop for all that. Like if something broke down, they would make it themselves. Well, this is why we need Lance here, or anybody else that knows about this.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because that's one of the things that I did read, you know, about this location here in Gamboa, that they had shops in there and they had all the metal shops, woodworking shops, you name it, it was there. So you're right. They probably did have to do that stuff, but you know, there's probably those occasions when you still had to, you still had to either improvise or you had to wait and, you know, till there's maybe a part that really could only come this way. But either way, it's nice to have that backup there in case, because again, the primary goal of these things is to what? Keep that canal open. Yep. So you're waiting for a part for 2 weeks. Well, okay, so we got to wait 2 weeks, but you know, there may not be enough room to get a ship through that Culebra cut. You got to get a dredge out there to clean it up anyway. So, you know, we do know that landslides occurred. And so that was something that was always going to be important to have there. So it made sense to keep one as a backup there for sure. The other one that was a really interesting one here, similar type here, the Goliath, you know, another very large one here. And then, you know, that's
the one I remember, the Goliath. Yeah.
80-ton lifting capacity, right? It was an amazing thing. Another interesting thing about this one was non-self-propelled. It was a dead tow. So lacking on engines, it relies entirely on powerful tugs like the San Pablo to move it around, right? You know, I mean, everything about that engine apparently was for lifting power. So it also had, you know, that versatility. You could change the equipment to use on it, that clamshell bucket to scoop stuff up. You have a pile driver, you know, to work stuff in there. And then again, that heavy hook to pick stuff up, you know? So it's interesting, you know, interesting flexibility that one gave them. And, you know, like Jim mentioned there a moment ago, part of it was loading on the, you know, the tugs and stuff. The other thing we're going to catch here on another one of these slides is the overhauling of the gates, right? That prior used to be something that you would close that entire lock chamber from top to bottom, and you'd only have one channel to use while they were overhauling them all right in that location. And they finally figured out a way to do that. We're going to see here in just a moment that sped it up quite a bit here, and you know, required these heavy lifters though to take care of that. So that was kind of cool there. But that's the Goliath there. And then the other strange one here that had a unique purpose to it, wasn't designed for this, but ended up, you know, providing quite a solution, was the Mindy. Okay. And this one, as it says there, the 75-year silt master. Silt, guys, is that very fine dirt at the bottom of your rivers and canals, obviously, and stuff. And that stuff is typically what's being brought in as water moves, you know, and whatnot. And certainly the canal is, as we know, the water moves there constantly. So they had this dredge, or this vessel here that had a big, for lack of a better term, it was a big giant vacuum cleaner, right? Mm-hmm. And this thing would literally suck the dirt and all the debris or whatever, and they would pull it out that way, and it would, in essence, vacuum it all up.
Yeah, like interesting. A pool cleaner.
Yes, in essence, a pool cleaner, you know. The original ship, Baltimore Origins, and Baltimore 1943 service started built by the Ellicott Machine Corporation in 41, entered canal service by 1943. Okay. The propulsion paradox. Despite her massive power, the Mindy relied entirely on tugboats for movement. Again, you want to use that power for other things there. So 30-foot pipeline dredge.
30-inch.
Or 30
Must
inch
be the
pipeline.
diameter. So like
yes,
that.
That's massive, man. That's 10,000 horsepower industrial Titan packing 7,400 kilowatts of total power with 745 kilowatts dedicated to the cutter head. So it would chop stuff up, break it up, and then pull it in, right? So you don't get a bunch of rocks that are trying to suck the rocks in there. The 160-ton hydraulic ladder loosens material with a rotating head, pumping 750 cubic yards of spoil every hour. That's amazing. So it grinds it up and it just sucks it right up in there. That's pretty cool. So now something.
Yeah, but that dirt, Willie, that dirt's not good for buildings, not good for roads.
Right.
It's not even. You can't even throw that away. That's like the worst dirt. So I wonder where they would, store all that.
Well, there's something that actually happened with that, and it created a problem. You're absolutely right, and they had a very ingenious way of dealing with that we're going to talk about here in just a moment. Because you're right, it was useless, but you had to put it somewhere, right? But one of the things it unfortunately did was it held a lot of water. And so it just was real difficult. But nonetheless, another thing that we're going to talk about here in just a bit is, the dredging division. Obviously, they had their regular maintenance of the canal and the locks and the chambers and everything else. But the other thing was during emergencies. No telling how much gold that thing. Yeah, no kidding, right, Rich?
No
Absolutely,
kidding, man.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. If I worked on that thing, I'd be staying after work with a little panning there and going to that silt there and see what you could find. But anyhow, the other thing that the dredging division was in charge of was taking care of any emergencies, right? We've talked about landslides. That was probably one of the more common emergencies was landslides. But another one was they had a ship that actually ran aground, tore a big hole in the ship, and so it consequently flooded and sank.
This was in 71, 72.
In 1971, absolutely. And so this ship played a role in taking care of that, because as we're going to see here, this created a really, really big problem for the canal. And, getting it out of there was a much more difficult task than what anybody had imagined. So going to be interesting to go over that here a little bit, and hopefully we get it right. But anyhow, let's go back to that heavy lifting that we were talking about just a moment ago here, right? Prior to 1965, the locks, the gates themselves, okay, the miter gates as they're referred to, they had to be taken care of every so often. It was typically about every 20 to 30 years they had to be refurbished, they had to be maintained and whatnot. And what they would do back then was they would close that one entire lock chamber. And they would go ahead and do all that work. It would take about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. That's a lot of time to restrict your amount of traffic movement, because now you only have one set of locks working, and you're going to have to go kind of like the Balboa Bridge, right? You got to wait for traffic to go a bunch of times, stop, and then go back the other way and just keep going back and forth. So it really restricted things. And so they had to come up with a way of doing this and speed things up. And so, you had these Hercules and Goliath and all these dredges that could lift a lot of weight, but even as much weight as they could lift up, there was a limitation. The limitation was 250 tons, as you can see on the lower left there behind my little beer sign. But that 250 ton weight was much, much less than what these gates weighed. Remember, these things were 65 feet wide. They were 7 feet thick, 80 feet high, made out of metal and whatnot. So they weren't light by any stretch. So there's no way that these vessels could lift those up. What they came up with was an ingenious plan here. These gates were designed with hollowed out chambers inside them. And so they pumped air into them, and they made them much more buoyant, right? They could float a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to lift it all the way up in the air, but all you had to do was lift it off. They have what's called a spindle ball on the bottom, and that's what it sits on in pivots. And so you would take it and you disconnect the top end of it, lift that up off the ball, and then just let the gate itself lay down in the water, right? Because think about it, those gates there were two doors, right? In essence, right? They're like, think of them like almost like saloon doors, swinging doors, right? But they don't go in both directions. But the point is, those gates fully extended only goes halfway through that channel, right? So you can lay that thing down in the middle of the channel, float it all the way out, take it to the dry dock, repair that thing in 2 days, float it back in and put it on, and you're good to go. And that's what they ended up doing. That's why they were using these dredges to lift them up with that new lightened load. And now you went from several weeks of a lane outage to just 2 days. And suddenly the pintle bearing, that's what that's called. Absolutely. It's a big giant ball that it sits on. And that's what it pivots on and rotates back and forth. And so this was a big, huge innovation, because just now when Ricky was mentioning that, the Panama now with this whole issue with the Strait of Hormuz is going up to 41 transits a day. Well, you shut down a lane for 2+ weeks. That's a big impact on the amount of movement you can do there. And so this is one of those innovations that allowed them to now be able to do this. And in 2 days, that lane is back up and running, and you're no less for wear on that. So that was an interesting piece to learn about how that functioned there, and how those dredges were able to use those, not just for dredging, but use them for that heavy lifting. Was a hash sphere that it sat on. Okay. And so I'd imagine that over time, that in itself would start to wear and grind inside that joint. They probably had to redo that as well. But that's interesting, And again, having it in water, it's a little bit more buoyant. So, the other thing that was a regular occurrence was, of course, expanding, clearing up. And from 54 to 71, they did a big expansion operation. And we're talking about the Culebra Cut. Right. The interesting thing about the Panama Canal, when you really understand how the canal works and the functionality of it, really what it is, it's a bridge, and it's a water bridge, right? They raise that canal. If you look at the profile, it goes up from one side down here, it lifts up, and then they use the lake as a bridge to go all the way to the next side and drop it down. Right. The real massive digging part of that canal was the 9-mile Culebra Cut stretch, because you literally cut through a mountain. You cut a valley into a mountain. Right. And so that was the most narrow area, because obviously you were limited on resources and time. You weren't going to make this big, giant, massive area. But that was in 1914. Right. And you fast forward to 1954, and you got a lot bigger ships now. You got a lot more traffic using it now. Right. In the Culebra Cut, if there were two big ships, you were going again back to the Balboa Bridge example. You had to wait on one side till the other one was allowed to go through. And I believe there's a term they called it for that. And Jim will probably know that term, but I forget what the term was, but there was a term that for those bigger ships that you had to have that channel there for, only one ship to be able to fit through there. And at night it was even worse, right? Because you had very limited visibility. And again, you don't want to have an accident there, because you close that channel, you're screwed, right? During a major overhaul, the pintle bearing was inspected and repaired as necessary. Yeah. There was they would clear that thing out, lift that, float it out, fix that pintle bearing if they had to, that pintle bearing. The miter gate itself was in a dry dock, so you had all hands on board there doing their thing, and they're clearing it out, maybe repairing whatever they need to, and float it back in, and you're good to go. You're back in business, man. That was a really big deal, man. That really improved that operation, the canal, quite a bit. But again, this widening project allowed them to have a lot more traffic 24 hours a day. And so they went from 300 feet, which you think is a lot at the football field, to 500 feet. So they almost doubled the width of that Culebra Cut, or Gaylord Cut, as we also called it. They also added lighting, that ribbon of lighting, the fluorescent bank lighting on there that offered, again, that safe 24-hour operation. So what's really interesting about this widening project, they removed 244 million cubic yards of spoil. And that actually, I read somewhere, was more than they dug up on the initial construction of the canal. That's how much the Culebra Cut and that area was involved with digging. It really was where the bulk of your digging took place, was there. When you look at early construction projects and plans for the canal, they divided the canal into 3 sections, right? They had the Atlantic Division, they had the Pacific Division, and they had the Central Division, which, I mean, really the Central Division was almost 90% of it was the Culebra Cut. And it was just massive, massive amount of digging there, because you literally cut through a mountain and made it an entire valley of that mountain. So, but this was a big, big project, and this was a big win for the dredging division. It was to be able to expand the size of the canal and offer safe, 24 operations for two-way, traffic and increase of flow and everything. So that was a big, big, high five for the dredging division when they did that. But we were talking about the Siam Yung accident, right? Siam Yung, when it sunk, and what that did, and what a big deal that was. Aids to navigation to care of the lights in the cut in the canal. Yeah, it really did, guys. I mean, the thing about a ship, guys, is unlike a car, a ship doesn't stop when you put the brakes on. Right? I mean, that stuff, it moves and it keeps moving. It takes a while, right? So you got to have a lot of safety precautions in place. You got to have great visibility. You got to have room for navigation. This one itself, the accident here was because of an interesting phenomenon that occurs, where in channels of water like that, you have a situation where the movement of the water as it's being displaced as a ship goes through there actually becomes a vacuum, and it pulls the ship towards the shore. So what happened in 1970, actually, the Siam Yung struck a rocky bank and sank in the Gaylord Cut. It was right at about the point where Contractors Hill is. As it was getting to that point, it started pulling it to the right. But it was the front end that got pulled. The back end swung out in the other direction. And it was the engine room and stuff on the port side that hit a rock and tore a big, massive hole in it. And it started to take on water and go down. One of the interesting things that happened immediately after this happened, of course, the pilot immediately, radios for help. They get some tugs out there and stuff. What they didn't want to do is have it sink right in the middle of the channel. And so as it was taking on water and sinking, they're pushing it. And they went almost a half a mile towards the Pedro Miguel locks. And they got to that one last bend before you get to the locks there, where the channel kind of widens a little because there's a bend there. And that's ultimately where it finally wasn't moving any further. It finally sunk. About 2/3 of the ship was underwater. When the Siam Yung sank, the birds yes, they did. So that's what it was carrying. It was carrying rice, it was carrying cotton, and it was carrying oil, right? And obviously ships have a lot of oil on themselves. They're massive machines. But what happened was, in addition to it sinking and that becoming a problem, where it sunk was not too far from where the water intake for all the public water for us in the zone and in Panama City, our drinking water, our water to shower, the intake was very close there. In fact, it was about 200 yards away. And this rice and this cotton, all this stuff started to ferment and rot. And we're talking tons of this stuff. It wasn't like, a truck full. It was tons of it, which was going to contaminate the water. Yeah, ship full. Yeah, absolutely. So that became a problem. They got to get this taken care of, right? And so they initially came and tried to lift the ship up. Remember, you talk about these giant cranes and how they have this great lifting capacity, but they couldn't do it. It wouldn't come up. There's, again, a massive suction when you're in dirt and silt in a channel like that. As you lift it up, that swirling below it becomes an actual suction. The other fear was that if they pulled too hard on those locations that they attached to that ship, they're going to split the ship in half. Mm-hmm. And then you'd really be in trouble, because now you'd have that stuff just pouring out everywhere. So, it really was a big issue. Yeah, it was. Listen, that rice started to ferment. It started to rot, so, but what they did, remember one of the ships, the Mindy, had that big suction on it.
Yep.
They said
that's right. The Mighty Mindy with the suction.
They did. They modified it so they didn't need that grinding thing in front of it, obviously, because it wasn't going to break anything up. And they obviously probably had to open up holes inside the hull there. But they ended up sucking out all that cargo that was in there rotting away. They ended up having to seal this thing up eventually, and they were able to float it up enough to where they were able to patch it up and eventually they floated it out, I believe, out in the Pacific side. And I'm pretty sure that's what it was, because I probably didn't want to take it back through Culebra again. And eventually they ended up sinking it out in, I believe it was in the Pacific Ocean. They scrapped it. Whoever the owners were, I guess they figure you're not going to be able to sell this or do anything with it. So they would, that's what they ended up doing. They ended up scrapping it. And so it's out in the Pacific Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, out there somewhere in maybe the Bay of Panama. There's a wreck down there, and that's
nice reef.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't a quick, short fix. Okay, this happened on December 6th, 1970. They didn't finally get it out until January 11th of 72. This was a long time. And I would imagine that this other, the Mindy, it had the modification to do this, but this thing probably had other work to do as well. So it's not like it just, take everything offline and just work on this ship. You still have a canal to maintain and ensure that it stays clear. So, so the primary method they used for this was patch and pump. Okay, so they patched it up, they pumped water out of there, and they started to float it up again. And finally, they scuttled it in the Bay of Panama. There you go.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul, we lived on the Atlantic side. Whenever we sent to the Pacific side on a race, the West Bank of Middle Forest Locks, we would see the sunken. Yeah, there's a lot of pictures. We're going to go over some pictures. There's a section here where we're going to pull up some pictures, and there's quite a few photos of this. So you can see how, you can appreciate how shallow the canal really is. It's not as deep as we think it is, because when the ship went down, at some point it wasn't going down any further, and that's where it was stuck, and that's where it sat until they were finally able to take care of it. But yeah, that was kind of interesting how they worked that out. And we saw, what was it now, maybe 5 years now, Ricky, since that big tanker blocked the Suez Canal.
Yeah, about 5 years. Yeah.
And I mean, immediately prices for goods just skyrocketed, not just oil. The Hormuz thing is, they're limited. There's only one type of cargo that goes in and out of the area, and that's oil, right?
Yeah.
But like the Panama Canal, you have everything going through there.
Yeah, I remember a ship being sunk out there between Pedro Miguel and Miraflores. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I think I recall there being a ship out there too.
I don't remember that. It'd be interesting to see if anybody recalls that. Certainly throw that in the chat, because that would be an interesting. Interesting to see what happened there. But anyhow, so that was again kind of some interesting, information here. Obviously, we were hoping to have Lance on to help us out and give us a lot more context to this and spend a little bit more time on some of that stuff. But we did have some really cool pictures that Lance was going to show us, and go over a couple of things here, and some other stuff that I pulled from online that I thought were really cool, and so this is a what they call a drilling dredge, and I don't know what the exact terminology is, but this one, as you can see, those towers there, those are the ones that they would actually drill holes down, put dynamite in, and then blow it up and whatnot, and be able to loosen things up there to be able to then scoop it up and get it out of there. So that was, again, one of the different kinds of equipment that they had on there. Another one here, and again, you can appreciate, what these dredges look like, and as you can see, it does rotate there, right? Because it is facing forward, but the boom has turned to the side there, and comes up with that big scoop, and once it gets over that barge, it'll open it up and drop all that debris in there. Right. And so, again, just kind of interesting here. I was hoping that we'd have some more context on some of this stuff. This one here is interesting. Okay. Because as Jim was mentioning earlier there, you could take a locomotive and move it from that middle section over to the right, or vice versa to the left if you had to. Right. You can move them around that way. Obviously, it looks like that when there's getting ready to maybe lift up that lock gate or something there. But that's what they would do. They would actually float the entire thing in there, lay the lock gate down in the water. It's floating now. Attach it to a tug, and then push it out to the dry dock. Load it up in that dry dock. Get all the water out, put your crew in there, fix it up, do your repairs, float it back in there, load it up, and you're good to go. And in 2 days, your canal is back up and running. So that was a really great innovation that they did with that one there. Let's see what this one here. Okay, here's what we're talking about there. Look at the size of that equipment that's being moved around. That's what these things are able to do, and they're mobile. Right, you can move them all around the canal to do these kind of things and lift up any kind of heavy equipment, locomotives, trains, and whatnot. It just it offered you a lot of really good flexibility when it came to that. This is the Goliath. There it is, and again, some of these ships or these, what they're looking like they would do on some of these is they really were just putting this on a barge. It seems, right? They stabilized it where they could, but the only engines in this thing seems like they're to power the actual dredge itself,
Crane,
not to move it around. You hook it up with tugboats and you move it to wherever you want to go, and that's kind of the way that works. So interesting operation there. That would be cool to see the barge or the scow. Okay, there you go. The scow would bottom dump when out to the disposal area. So I'm gonna see if let me see if I can find this, because there is and I don't know if I have the pictures on here, but let me see if there's one. What is this one? Okay, that's the Cardenas. Okay, so it's like one of the big launches or tugs pulling up next to it, hooking up next to it. But I did have one. Okay, yeah, there it is, scooping stuff up again. I have got a picture somewhere or an infographic, and it talked about what they did with that silt, because they did have an issue with that. They absolutely did. Let me see if this one here. Bear with me, Ricky. Throw something in here while I'm looking for this one real quick. I'll get back to it some other time we'll have to redo this episode. But what happened was they would take these and there was certain areas where they would dump all this silt, okay, all this very fine dirt, mud, and it would just sit there, and it holds a lot of water. It wouldn't drain very well. And so what they ended up doing, there's a couple of areas that they did this, and I had them written down here, but I'm sure Jim will chime in on this as well. But they actually had to use dynamite, and they ended up dynamiting some trenches in these areas to drain the water out of these places, so they could do something with all that silt, because it was starting to accumulate. Right. And again, because of the way the canal operates, you have water coming down the Chagres. Well, it brings silt with it. Right. It's kind of like the Mississippi. Everyone, when you hear the term the Mississippi Delta, right, that's all that fine dirt that's coming down the Mississippi for hundreds of miles, and it gets deposited right in that area there. Right. It's very fine. It's very just a lot of it, and it's constant. It never stops. Well, the same thing happens here, right? Because remember, the canal is all operated by gravity and water that's dumped out of the Gatun Lake through the lock chambers all the way out to the ocean. So you always have moving water, and it's always moving dirt with it. And so you'll clear this place out, and I don't know how long it's, maybe 6 months, maybe a year later, whatever, that silt starts to build up again. You got to go back in and clear it out again. So it was nonstop, and you had to put that stuff in some areas to store it in essence. And it became too much, and they couldn't move it anymore. It was holding too much water. And so, yeah, they would dynamite stuff and dynamite rocks inside the bucket. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, I guess I would imagine that would probably be where you had a bucket that would break a big chunk and it would get stuck inside the bucket. And you probably have to dynamite it to get it out of there. Or
just too big to transport. That's why they break it up. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. And again, that's the power of steam. You know, as long as the housing for the boiler and the housings for the valves are strong enough, the steam will push as much steam as you let in. It will push, and so if it requires more effort, it'll generate it for you. You know, that's pretty cool. That's amazing. Oh, I'm glad Jim's able to give us a little color commentary on here, because it does give us some little context and insight on some of this stuff, because it really is interesting. And I'm really sorry that we couldn't, have Lance on. He's very sorry he couldn't make it, but he's got some technical issues at home there. But this is a story that we will definitely pick up again, because there's a lot of that I certainly don't know. Obviously, Jim can add some context, and he mentioned that Bill Duffus can help with that as well. And I know that Lance mentioned to us when we were doing our prep. Ricky, remember, he mentioned that his brother is still the chief engineer on
he's still working there. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we could get him to join us as well and give us some more info on that also, because that would be really cool. But
yeah, from my age group, my buddies, the Whitlocks, their father used to also be the top guy.
Yes, absolutely. Let me see here. That's that drill boat. Let me see what else we have here. So these were I found some other cool pictures that weren't of the dredge themselves, but this is more about Lance, because Lance was of Zonian too. I mean, this guy was, as a kid, grew up here. He graduated BHS and then went
71, right? Or 71.
I believe 71 or 72 he graduated, yes.
71, yes.
But there he is doing his motocross racing in Miraflores, and we've seen some of that stuff in in Mark Cicero's Panama Days video, there's at the end there's that cool section on the racing in Miraflores. So that was an iconic track there. And then here's a couple of photos of Lance. He was also served in the Navy, so he's I mean, this guy has been on the water his whole life, it seems, and got a great story, not just in the Canal Zone, but then story of him serving in the Navy as well. And there's some great pictures of them here. But this was him, working on the Panama Canal, and so hoping that we can, get it rescheduled and get him to join us to really clarify this story for us and tell us, really what this Canal Zone dredging division was like, what that whole operation was like, because it was quite an operation, but like a lot of things that we didn't know a heck of a lot about it, right? And until it goes away, and all of a sudden, like, man, I want to learn about that now, right? I drove past it all these times, but never even bothered to look twice at that area. Right.
Yeah, I don't even recall it being that big.
Yeah, it's if you look at, let me pull up that Google Earth here, right? Because I'll show you. I had some images here, and I might be able to add them on here, but it was of that area, so you kind of get an idea of where it is. For most of us that don't, we're familiar with the Gamboa and stuff, but it's not like you could see it, clearly from driving around there. You actually had to be in that. Here it is. Okay.
Had to be above it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was, I wasn't really hidden, but it wasn't out in the open either. Right.
Well, truly Gamboa, we would just kind of hang out either like when we were kids at the gym and their stadium for archery and swimming and that kind of stuff. So we really didn't hang out like when we went to Gamboa.
Right.
All over the town.
Correct. You're correct. Exactly. It was you did that if you lived there, right? But if not, then forget about it. But let me go back to, this is a good, I can still get it on this one here, because you can only go back so far before you lose resolution. You can't really see anything on there, but this one seems to do okay. Yeah. This one here. Okay. So
on the train, yes.
Maybe this one. There we go. Okay, that's a little newer. So it's 2008, so it still hasn't really outgrown to where it is now, but kind of give you an idea there. So here's the Gamboa Bridge, right? Remember the bridge you had to wait? It was a one-way bridge, right? And then you went into Gamboa here. You can make that first right and go up into the housing area here. Go out there where you go out to the club out there and all that good stuff, right? And then you came in here, and this is where you were talking about, Ricky, because we would go.
Yeah, we would just go in here. That's it. That's as far as we would go
there, and we would do the archery or the soccer or whatever it was we were playing there. But to our left there was where all this stuff was. And you go a little further here, and this is where you get into that entrance there, right? And you can see there's some of the stuff docked there, some of the dredges and stuff. These are all the shop buildings and stuff that you have there. That kind of peninsula goes out, and it went all the way to here. As you can see, here's one of those big dredges there. You can kind of see the shadow of it there, right? As it's up against the water there. There's a smaller one next to it.
That's the German one, yeah.
Yeah,
over here's where the Cayuca race would end.
Yes. Correct.
After the lake. Okay, all right. But I still don't recall that big, massive area there.
Yeah, no, and you probably started back up on the other side again. I didn't paddle, so I couldn't tell you that. But that's where the dredging area was, the dredging division. That was their location. And again, it makes sense if you zoom out now and you look at the canal. That's right in the middle, halfway
Smack
here
in the
and
middle,
halfway there, right? Because not a lot going on here. It's mostly a big giant lake. So not a lot of dredging needed there, except maybe on occasion. But, I think the real priority was this area here, the Culebra Cut in here, some of this stuff here on this side, because here's the Chagres River coming down this way. So you're pushing a lot of water into this direction. You're probably filling up with a lot of silt and stuff. It's starting to move there. So over here is where the approximately here was Contractors Hill. Okay, in this area here, this is where it first ran aground, that Siam Yung or whatever, and they pushed it out along here somewhere. Right about here is where it came to rest, and sat there again for about 2 years while they emptied it out and figured out what to do, patch it up so they could get it on, tow it out in there. And then again, it is sitting out here somewhere in the middle of Panama Bay is the wreck of the Siam Yung. So there you have it, guys. That's our dredging division there. That's what this place is and what that place did for a long time. Let me see if I can find those pictures, because I know there's quite a few of those pictures on it, of the wreck. Let me see here. Do I have them on here? I believe so. Yeah, here's one. Okay. Okay, let me turn this one off. So there you go. As you can see now, the bridge in the background there. Wow, I don't. Oh, okay, so this can't be that wreck. No, it's not, because that Centenario Bridge wasn't there yet. Okay, no, never mind. But I do have there are quite a few pictures of it. Let me see something else here, because I know I had added a few of these on there. Here we go. This is one. This is one for sure. Okay. So there it is. You can see this yellow mast in the middle there. That's actually the mast of the ship. Okay, you can see some in the back of it there. That's the ship. It's underwater, right? That boom that you see all along the water line there, they put that there because it was leaking a lot of oil. And so, oil, of course, floats. So you keeps the boom on the surface to keep that oil contained there while they were slowly but surely cleaning it out and pumping it up. So, but that's, ships would traverse and go by this thing for 2 years and watch, the work being done to eventually raise this thing up enough to be able to push it out and eventually sink it in the Pacific Ocean there. So that's what that ended up doing. They ended up pushing it off to the side, and kudos to the Panama Canal pilot and the tugboat pilots that when the actual accident happened, they were quick enough to be able to push it so that it didn't block the middle of the canal there. So, but yeah, we got a pretty good look at the dredging unit went on the train. Yeah, you did. Absolutely. Because it went right next to it. It sure did. It went right. I mean, literally right next to it. That's absolutely true. Shout out to Lance. Yeah. And hopefully we can get him on, because he's got a great story. His family's got a great, Canal Zone, legacy, and it's still ongoing now. It's a Panama Canal legacy as well. They're still working on that. So, that's going to be a good time when we finally are able to get that taken care of. So, but anyhow, that was a lot of fun. It was, in spite of not getting it done the way we wanted, we still were able to get some cool stuff there. So,
yeah, we got through. Thanks, Willie. I'm glad you did it. I had a long week at work. Sorry, guys. I did not come as prepared as I normally do.
No, it's all good though. We still had fun with this as usual, and most of all, it's all the fun that the folks have chiming in there as well.
Yes. Appreciate it. We do appreciate it there, guys. Everybody that helped out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Next week, like we said, guys, Vern and Ricky, what's his new nickname?
El Fulo de Colón.
El Fulo de Colón will be joining us next week to talk some Atlantic side stories. Speaking of Atlantic side stories, Jim, I want to reach out to you and see if we can't do a Gatun lock segment. We kind of touched on it when we did that Gatun transit show, but that had a lot of other aspects to it. I want to do one just on a set of locks there, and I think that would be a great one, and hopefully you can help us out with that. So looking forward to that. But again, as usual, guys, next week we're gonna go back to the Atlantic side with Vern and talk to him about that, do some Canal Zone dictionary, and then get close to the end of the month again. Man, the months just fly by, don't they? So anyhow, year. Speaking of flying by, there's our little Chiva bus.
My little Chiva bus going straight to Callejota. Well, guys, thank you for being with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will do it again next week at the same time. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much.